Segnali di pericolo.
Danger signals. Warning signs are vertical signs characterized by the typical triangular shape, with the tip pointing upwards. They are normally placed 150 meters before the danger indicated by the sign. They require you to moderate your speed to be ready to face the critical situation that we will find after 150 meters. So we have to be especially careful. They can be integrated with panels that indicate a different distance that separates us from the danger through the distance panel, or for how many meters or kilometers we will find ourselves in the critical situation represented by the signal indicated by the extended panel. Some of these signals may be deeply yellow in color. When placed in correspondence with temporary road works,
Strada deformata.
deformed road, this danger sign usually announces at 150 meters a deformed road, that is in bad condition, with uneven pavement or surface, particularly dangerous for the stresses and damage that can be caused to suspensions. It can be combined with a maximum speed limit sign. When we see the sign shown combined with the extended supplementary panel, it means that the road is deformed for a stretch, in this case 380 meters long. When we see the sign shown combined with the additional distance panel, it means that 320 meters are missing at the beginning of the danger of a road with uneven pavement. In the presence of this signal, we must proceed at moderate speed to avoid excessive stress and damage to the suspension, paying attention also to vehicles coming from the opposite direction. In case of rain, it can increase the phenomenon of water planning, slipping on the water, and therefore it is asked to hold the steering wheel with a more secure grip.
Dosso.
This danger sign announces a bump, that is a change in slope, with an uphill stretch of road followed by a dangerous downhill stretch due to lack of visibility. In the presence of this signal, we must moderate our speed and keep to the right as much as possible. Stopping is not allowed on the downhill stretch or even on the uphill stretch. Reversing is also prohibited both in ascent and descent. As for the overtaking maneuver, the maneuver is not allowed in the uphill stretch. If the road is two-way, with only two lanes as there is no visibility and the lane in the opposite direction is invaded. Overtaking, on the other hand, is allowed if we are on a road with two lanes in each direction of travel. Furthermore, the overtaking maneuver can be carried out safely in the descent section of the bump. We can find this signal before an artificial bump used to force vehicles to reduce speed.
Cunetta.
This warning sign announces the presence of a gutter, that is, a variation in slope with a downhill stretch of road, followed by a climb that could widen in case of heavy rainfall. In the presence of this signal, we must moderate the speed, regardless of the visibility or the presence or absence of vehicles coming from the opposite direction, to avoid excessive stress on the suspension. In addition, the steering wheel must be firmly held in order not to lose control of the vehicle and to foresee that water or debris may be found on the road surface. Overtaking is allowed, but it may not be appropriate. We are very careful in the quizzes not to confuse these three signs:
Strada deformata, dosso e cunetta. Curva pericolosa a destra.
Dangerous curve to the right. This warning sign announces a non-straight stretch of road that curves to the right, dangerous due to the lack of visibility and the possible reduced radius of curvature. In the presence of the dangerous curve sign on the right, it is necessary to moderate the speed and approach the curve keeping to the right as much as possible to avoid skidding, taking into account the visibility and the conditions of the road surface. For example, a wet road or particular vehicle conditions, such as circulation with a spare wheel. Following the drilling of a first handle, in the presence of the dangerous curve sign on the right, it is forbidden to stop, reverse and reverse on two-way roads and only two lanes, i.e. only one lane for each direction of travel. It is necessary to drive as close as possible to the right edge of the carriageway, and it will be forbidden to overtake all vehicles, including motorcycles, before the curve. Even if the maneuver can be done without crossing the strip that separates the directions of travel.
Curva pericolosa a sinistra.
Dangerous left curve. This warning sign announces a non-straight stretch of road that curves to the left. In the presence of this signal, we must moderate the speed taking into account the visibility and the radius of curvature, the atmospheric conditions and the road surface, and finally the conditions of the vehicle, such as circulation with a rescue wheel. It is forbidden to stop, reverse and reverse on two-way roads and only 2 lanes. It is necessary to drive as close as possible to the right edge of the carriageway, and it will be forbidden to overtake other vehicles on one-way streets. It is not compulsory to strictly keep to the right, being able to overtake other vehicles.
Doppia curva la prima a destra.
Double curve, the first on the right. This warning sign usually announces a dangerous double bend at 150 meters, the first to the right, therefore a non-straight stretch of road with poor visibility and the risk of not being able to stop in time in the event of a sudden obstacle. Requires moderate speed and can be supplemented with a switch indicating panel. It can be integrated with an extended panel that makes us understand how many kilometers there are dangerous curves. The dangerous double curve sign, the first on the right integrated with an instance panel, makes us understand at what distance the dangerous curves will start and not how long the stretch of road with curves is. In the presence of the sign shown, you must drive as close as possible to the right edge, taking into account the load conditions of the vehicle and driving more carefully in the curves in case of rain. Particular attention must be paid to vehicles coming from the opposite direction, and overtaking is prohibited if the carriageway has 2 lanes and two-way traffic in correspondence with the curves. Reversing and reversing maneuvers will also be prohibited. It will also be forbidden to make the stop or the double curve stop, the first on the left. This warning sign heralds a dangerous double curve. The first to the left can be integrated with a panel indicating the hairpin bends. All the behaviors we have seen above apply to the double curve, with the first right.
Passaggio a livello con barriere o semibarriere.
Level crossing with barriers or semi-barriers. This warning sign usually announces a railway crossing protected by barriers or semi-barriers at 150 meters. Whatever the number of tracks, after this signal, if there are 6 barriers, we will find a flashing red light device, while in the case of the barriers we will find a steady red light device. An acoustic device can also be found that warns of the closing of the barriers or semi-barriers. When we see this signal, even if the visibility is excellent, we must moderate the speed to be ready to stop if the barriers are closed or if the acoustic device and the light or lights warn us that they are about to close. It is not allowed to engage the level crossing if heavy traffic prevents clearing, and if the vehicle stops due to a breakdown on the tracks, the driver must make every effort to clear the railway as soon as possible in order to avoid accidents. In case of failure of the barriers or semi-barriers, it is possible to find in their place stands with white and red stripes that prevent crossing the tracks near the level crossings. Parking and level crossing without barriers are prohibited.
Passaggio a livello senza barriere.
This warning sign heralds a barrier-free level crossing integrated with the geometric stand panel with 3 red bars and requires the utmost caution. It is mandatory to stop in the presence of luminous or acoustic signals in operation, otherwise it is sufficient to slow down to be able to eventually stop the vehicle. If necessary. It is always necessary to use the utmost caution by making sure, before crossing the tracks, that there are no trains arriving from either the right or the left. In the presence of the signal shown, it is not allowed to stop or stop near or in correspondence with the tracks.
Croce di Sant'Andrea.
Cross of Sant Andrea. It can be placed both horizontally and vertically. It will be integrated with flashing red lights and installed in the immediate vicinity of the railway site with only 1 track. If there are more tracks, we will see the double danger sign in the Cross of Sant Andrea, also installed in the immediate vicinity of the railway site. It can be combined with the stop sign to replace the flashing red lights. It is located after the red bar geometric stand panels and requires you to stop within the stop strip. If the train is arriving, even after the train has passed, please be careful before leaving because another train may be arriving. On the other track we find metric spaced panels before any type of level crossing. Normally about 150 meters from the railway crossing, they serve to indicate the progressive approach to the level crossing and belong to the category of danger signs, even if they are not triangular in shape.
Attraversamento tranviario.
Tramway crossing. This danger sign announces a tramway line outside and inside built-up areas that is not regulated by traffic lights, which crosses the carriageway and reduces the useful space for the circulation of vehicles. Not to be confused with the railway. In the presence of the tram crossing signal, the driver must pay more attention, because he could cross a tram and must try not to hinder the movement of vehicles. On the tramway site, it should be remembered that the tram can be overtaken both to the right and to the left when it is in motion. In particular, we can overtake on the right in the following cases. If the tram is running and there is necessary space, and if the tram is stopped in the middle of the road for the boarding and alighting of passengers, in the presence of the appropriate life jacket. On the other hand, it is absolutely forbidden to overtake on the right in the absence of the life jacket during the boarding and alighting of passengers. When we see this signal, we can circulate on the tracks without hindering the running of the tram, keeping in mind that trams need a longer stopping distance than cars. Attention must be paid to the possible decrease in the grip of the vehicle's wheels if braking on the tracks, especially in rainy weather.
Attraversamento pedonale.
Pedestrian crossing. This warning sign announces a pedestrian crossing and placed in suburban roads, usually 150 meters from the crossing, but can also be found in built-up areas. When we see this signal, we must give priority to pedestrians crossing on the strips, avoiding overtaking a vehicle that has stopped to allow pedestrians to cross. Stopping and parking are prohibited on pedestrian crossings. When we see this signal, we must slow down to be ready to stop, if necessary, to give way to pedestrians crossing. If you do not give priority to pedestrians, you will incur in the subtraction of license points.
Attraversamento ciclabile.
Cycle crossing. This warning sign, usually placed at 150 meters, announces a crossing for cyclists marked by the appropriate signs on the roadway. When we see this signal, we must slow down and be ready to stop if necessary, to give way to cyclists crossing. In the presence of the cycle crossing danger sign, it is necessary to behave in such a way as not to constitute a danger hindrance for cyclists, avoiding overtaking vehicles that have stopped to allow cyclists to cross the roadway.
Discesa pericolosa con pendenza del 10%.
Dangerous descent with a 10% gradient. This warning sign foreshadows a particularly dangerous descent, specifying the slope at which the vehicle's braking distance increases. In fact, it is necessary to increase the safety distance to avoid colliding with vehicles that proceed more slowly, using great caution. If the road is wet, and to avoid excessive use of the brakes in order not to overheat and make them inefficient, it is possible to regulate the speed by engaging a low gear, allowing to adequately exploit the braking action of the engine.
Salita ripida con pendenza del 10%.
Steep climb with 10% gradient. This warning sign is placed before a steep climb, specifying the slope. In the presence of the steep ascent signal with a gradient of 10%. Proceed with caution, engaging a suitably low gear to optimize engine performance. Let's see a simple rule in order not to confuse the ascent signal with the descent signal in quizzes. If we see the percentage sign at the top of the black triangle, it will mean that we are talking about the steep climb signal. Instead, if we see it at the bottom, it will mean that we are talking about the steep descent signal.
Strettoia simmetrica.
Asymmetric narrowing. This warning sign announces a narrowing on both sides of the carriageway, with probable difficulties in crossing with vehicles coming from the opposite direction. It involves moderate speed and can be yellow in the presence of a road construction site. In fact, it is true that after the signal B can be found. If the narrowing is such as to reduce the width of the narrow passage to a single lane, in this case we will have precedence over those coming in the opposite direction, while in the case that we see in this figure we will have to give precedence to those who come in the opposite direction.
Strettoia asimmetrica a sinistra.
Left asymmetrical narrowing. This warning sign announces a bottleneck on the left side of the carriageway, with probable difficulty in crossing with vehicles coming from the opposite direction. It requires you to moderate your speed and, if you need to stop. It can have a yellow background if placed in the presence of a road construction site.
Strettoia asimmetrica a destra.
Right asymmetrical narrowing. This warning sign announces the narrowing of the carriageway caused by walls or other obstacles on the right side. It can also be on a two-way road and has a yellow background.
Ponte mobile.
If placed in the presence of a mobile bridge construction site, this danger sign announces a mobile bridge and can be integrated with a panel indicating the maneuver or operating times and the geometric distance panel with 3 red bars. After the signal depicted, we can find a flashing red light device that forces us to stop the vehicle.
Banchina pericolosa.
Dangerous quay. This danger sign announces a stretch of road with a dangerous quay because it is yielding or impracticable. There is a risk of falling into the side gutter, so it is advisable not to drive too close to the right edge of the carriageway.
Strada sdrucciolevole.
Slippery road. This danger sign announces a stretch of road that can become dangerous in particular climatic conditions specified in the supplementary panels. Ice, rain on which tire grip can decrease, becoming particularly slippery.
Scivoloso.
Slippery. When we see this signal, it is necessary to moderate the speed and avoid sharp accelerated braking or sharp steering in case of rain or ice, increasing the safety distance from the vehicle in front of us. Signal A combined with panel B foreshadows a road with a particularly slippery surface in case of rain. If combined with panel B, signal A announces a stretch of road on which the presence of ice,
Materiale instabile sulla strada.
an unstable material on the road, is likely. This warning sign announces the presence of crushed stone, which can be thrown at a distance as the vehicle passes with the danger of skidding or skidding. We must therefore proceed with caution, moderating our speed when crossing another vehicle and keeping a greater distance from the vehicle in front. We must use the utmost caution in the presence of pedestrians, even if they are off the road. If with a yellow background, it is found in the presence of road construction sites.
Attenzione, bambini.
Attention children. This warning sign announces places frequented by children and can be found in the vicinity of schools, public gardens and playgrounds frequented by children. When we see this sign, we need to moderate our speed and pay attention to children, even if they are on the sidewalks, with particular attention to their unpredictable movements. It is also forbidden to overtake vehicles that have stopped to allow children to cross.
Animali domestici vaganti.
Wandering pets. This warning sign announces a stretch of road with probable crossing of pets. It requires you to slow down and stop if necessary. If the animals on the road do not move or show signs of fright.
Animali selvatici vaganti.
Wandering wild animals. This warning sign heralds the probable and sudden crossing of wild animals. It requires to slow down and, if necessary, to stop if the animals give a sign of fear or suddenly cross the road, avoiding the risk of collisions with wild animals. Furthermore, it is necessary to avoid the repeated use of the horn.
Doppio senso di circolazione.
Two-way traffic. This warning sign announces that a one-way carriageway becomes two-way traffic, with the possibility of encountering vehicles moving in the opposite direction just beyond. It will be necessary to use greater caution since the one-way traffic ends and, if we wish, overtake, if it is allowed. We must in any case carry out the maneuver with greater prudence, given the presence of vehicles in the opposite direction.
Preavviso di circolazione rotatoria.
Roundabout circulation notice. This warning sign announces an intersection of two or more suburban roads regulated with roundabout circulation in the direction indicated by the arrows. It can also be used in built-up areas if traffic safety reasons require it. For example, if the roundabout has a hardly visible
Sbocco su molo o su argine.
exit on a pier or embankment, this warning sign announces the end of the road on a pier, on a port quay, or on the embankment of rivers or canals. It requires particular attention due to the danger of falling with the vehicle in the water if you have to reverse, especially at night.
Caduta massi da sinistra.
Falling rocks from the left. This warning sign announces the danger of falling rocks or boulders from the left, with their consequent presence on the roadway. It is therefore advisable to moderate your speed to avoid collision with any boulders that have fallen on the roadway, avoiding to stop for a long time in the stretch of road affected by the danger. Instead, it is necessary to avoid honking to avoid producing sound waves that can favor the detachment of rock fragments.
Caduta massi da destra.
Rockfall from the right. This signal announces the danger of falling stones or boulders from the right, with their consequent presence on the roadway. Therefore, all the behaviors of falling rocks from the left are valid.
Preavviso di semaforo verticale.
Vertical traffic light warning. This warning sign announces a traffic light with vertical arrangement of the lights, with the obligation to moderate the speed in order to be able to stop if necessary. Furthermore, a sign that may have a flashing yellow light in place of the yellow disc may have a yellow background if placed before a road construction site and is always present on extra-urban roads.
Preavviso di semaforo orizzontale.
Horizontal traffic light warning. This warning sign usually placed at 150 meters before heralds a traffic light with horizontal arrangement of the lights. This signal may also have a flashing yellow light in place of the yellow disc.
Aeromobili a bassa quota.
Low-flying aircraft. This warning sign is placed in the vicinity of runways for the landing and takeoff of airplanes and heralds the possibility of sudden glare or loud noise due to low-altitude airplanes. It requires you to moderate your speed and maintain the concentration necessary for driving.
Forte vento laterale.
Strong side wind. This signal, warning sign indicates a stretch of road subject to strong gusts of side wind. Possible on viaducts, very high and extended bridges and at the exit of the tunnels. The danger is greater for trailed or van vehicles, especially when they are unloaded or with a bulky load on the roof, due to the increase in the lateral surface on which the wind acts causing instability. The danger is also greater for vehicles towing trailers, such as caravans, and for two-wheeled vehicles such as motorcycles and mopeds. It is therefore necessary to proceed with caution, holding the steering wheel with a more secure grip, and in particular the tailed vehicles must slow down and stop if necessary.
Pericolo d'incendio.
Danger of fire. This danger sign announces the crossing of an area subject to the danger of fire, such as an easily flammable lateral forest, and integrated by the panel that indicates the length of the stretch of road concerned. Prohibits drivers and vehicle passengers from throwing lighted cigarettes out of the vehicle, which could cause fire. We pay attention in the quizzes. It is not forbidden to transit to particular categories of vehicles.
Altri pericoli.
Other dangers. This danger sign announces a danger other than those for which specific signs are provided and can be used without supplementary panels to indicate a general danger in case of emergency. Let's see some examples of combinations between signals and other dangers and some supplementary panels that will be better treated in the appropriate section. The signal can be found combined with panel B to announce the possibility of ice formation in the event of a sharp drop in temperature. The signal to other dangers integrated with the rail crossing panel B heralds the presence of maneuvering tracks in correspondence with industrial plants that have nothing to do with the level crossing for which a specific danger signal is provided. The signal is integrated with the panel. Snow plow in action. B is used when in winter there is the possible presence of snow plowing machines on the roadway. The A signal integrated with panel B announces the presence of construction vehicles, machinery, trucks, etc. in motion. Nothing to do with military-type vehicles.